My name is Jake, and I still can't wrap my head around how fast my life turned into a nightmare. For years, I thought my marriage to Emily was solid. Not perfect, mind you, but strong enough to weather anything. We had been together forever, riding the highs and lows like any couple does. I always figured we would find a way through whatever came our way. At least, that's what I told myself. But now, looking back, I see the truth plain as day. While I was clinging to the idea of us, Emily had already checked out. She was gone long before I even noticed, and that realization hits me like a punch to the gut. It didn't happen overnight. No, it started small, sneaky little signs I brushed off at first. She stopped doing the things she used to do, those tiny gestures that made me feel like we were a team. I'm not talking big stuff, just the everyday things. She used to leave me notes on the fridge, silly little messages like, "Don't forget to eat, dummy," with a goofy smiley face. Or she'd ask about my day, really listen, like she cared. But then those notes disappeared. The questions dried up. I told myself it was nothing. People get stressed, moods change, life gets heavy. I get that. I've been there. But this wasn't just stress. This was something else, something darker, and I was too blind to see it coming. She started coming home late. Not every night, but enough to make me wonder. I'd ask where she'd been, keeping it casual, not trying to sound like a paranoid jerk. "Oh, just out," she'd say, her eyes glued to her phone, not even bothering to look at me. That was it, just out. No details, no follow-up, nothing. If I pressed her, even a little, like, "Out where?" she'd sigh, loud and annoyed, like I was some kid bugging her for no reason. Sometimes she'd roll her eyes and mutter, "Geez, Jake, relax." That wasn't the Emily I knew. The woman I married used to spill every detail of her day, whether I wanted to hear it or not. Now, I was lucky to get a full sentence. Then there was the phone. That damn phone became her shadow. If she was in the living room, it was in her hand. If she went to the kitchen for a glass of water, it came with her. Late at night, I'd wake up to the faint blue glow lighting up her side of the bed. "Who are you texting?" I'd ask, trying to keep my voice steady. "Just a friend," she'd mumble, her tone flat, like it was no big deal. But when I'd push, "Because who texts a friend at 2 in the morning?" she'd snap. "Why do you even care, Jake?" she'd say, her voice sharp enough to cut. That stung. We never used to hide stuff from each other. Now it felt like she was locking me out of her world, brick by brick. One night, I couldn't take it anymore. We were lying in bed, the silence between us thicker than ever. I turned to her, my heart pounding like it was about to bust out of my chest. "Emily, what's wrong?" I asked, keeping it simple. "Why are you acting like this?" She didn't even flinch, just let out this short, harsh breath and said, "If I had something to say, I'd say it. Let me sleep, Jake." That was it. No explanation, no softness, just a wall slamming down between us. It hurt. God, it hurt. But it also lit a fire in me. People don't change like that for no reason. Something was up, something big, and I was done pretending everything was fine. A few days later, the truth started creeping closer. My buddy might call me out of the blue. He didn't waste time with small talk. "Hey, man, I hate to do this," he said, his voice low, serious. "But you need to check on Emily. I saw her with some guy, and they didn't look like just friends." My stomach dropped. I couldn't speak for a second, just stood there gripping the phone. My first thought was denial. No way. Not Emily. Not my wife. There had to be some mix-up. But then it all clicked. The late nights, the locked phone, the cold attitude. It wasn't random. It wasn't my imagination. Deep down, I knew Mike wasn't lying. I'd felt it for months. Now I had to prove it. I needed evidence, something solid she couldn't dodge. Her phone was the key, but getting to it was like cracking a safe. She guarded that thing like it held state secrets. It was always with her, kitchen, bathroom, even when she stepped outside for fresh air. And when she used it, she'd tilt the screen away from me, subtle but obvious. That alone screamed trouble. One night, I got my shot. She left it on the couch while she ran to the bathroom. My hands shook as I grabbed it, swiping up to unlock it. But the password, our old one, the one we'd shared forever, was wrong. She'd changed it. That hit me like a brick. We never kept secrets like that. Whatever she was hiding, she was damn serious about keeping it from me. I sat there on the couch, staring at Emily's phone in my hand, my heart hammering so loud I could hear it in my ears. The screen stared back at me, locked tight with a new password I didn't know. That was the moment it really sank in. She was hiding something, and it wasn't small. I put the phone back exactly where she'd left it, careful not to leave a trace. My mind was racing, but I had to play it cool. Emily couldn't know I was onto her, not yet. If she was slipping around behind my back, she'd mess up eventually. People always do when they think they're in the clear. I just had to wait for her to trip. The next few days were torture. Every move she made, I watched like a hawk. She didn't act any different, still distant, still glued to that phone, still tossing me crumbs of attention when she felt like it. But now I saw it all through a new lens. Every time she smiled at a text, my stomach twisted. Every time she stepped out to run an errand, I wondered where she was really going. I wasn't sleeping much either. I'd lie awake at night, listening to her breathing next to me, wondering who she was dreaming about. It was eating me alive, but I couldn't confront her yet. I needed proof, something hard, something she couldn't talk her way out of. Then, Friday hit, and she gave me an opening. She came into the kitchen while I was making coffee, casual as anything. "Hey, I'm heading out for a bit," she said, grabbing her keys off the counter. "Need to pick up some stuff." Her voice was light, but she didn't look at me. Kept her eyes on her purse like it was the most interesting thing in the room. "Where to?" I asked, keeping my tone even, like it was no big deal. She shrugged. "Just around. Won't be long." That was it. Vague as hell, same old story. My gut screamed at me. This was my chance. I nodded, played it off. "All right, see you later," I said, sipping my coffee like I didn't have a care in the world. The second her car pulled out of the driveway, I grabbed my keys. My hands were shaking, but I didn't hesitate. I had to know. I jumped in my truck and followed her, keeping a few cars back so she wouldn't spot me. My heart was in my throat the whole time, palms sweaty on the steering wheel. She drove through our neighborhood, then took a turn I didn't expect, away from the stores, toward a part of town we didn't usually go. I stayed on her tail, careful not to get too close. After about 10 minutes, she pulled up to a house I'd never seen before. A nice place, 2 stories, with a neat lawn and a black SUV in the driveway. She parked, got out, and walked straight to the front door like she owned the place. My chest tightened as she knocked, quick, confident, like she'd done it 100 times. The door swung open, and there he was, some guy, tall, dark hair, wearing a gray hoodie. I didn't know him, but the way he smiled at her told me everything. He stepped aside, and she walked right in. The door shut behind them, and just like that, my wife was inside another man's house. I fumbled for my phone, hands trembling, and snapped a few pictures, her car, the house, the moment she disappeared inside. I needed this. Proof. Evidence. Something to hold on to when the lies started flying. I didn't storm up to the door. I didn't call her or bang on the windows. I just sat there in my truck, staring at that house, feeling my whole world crack open. My marriage, everything I'd built with Emily, was crumbling right in front of me, and I couldn't look away. After a few minutes, I started the engine and drove home, my mind a mess of anger and questions. She came back that night, all smiles, acting like nothing happened. "Got what I needed," she said, tossing her purse on the counter. I nodded, kept my mouth shut. She had no idea I'd seen it all, but I wasn't going to let this slide. Not anymore. I couldn't sleep that night. Emily was lying next to me, her breathing soft and steady, like she didn't have a care in the world. Meanwhile, my head was spinning, replaying every second of what I'd seen. Her walking into that stranger's house. The way he'd smiled at her. The door closing behind them. Those pictures were burning a hole in my phone, and I kept fighting the urge to pull them up, to stare at them until they made sense. But they already made sense, didn't they? I just didn't want to admit it. Not yet. The next morning, I decided I was done waiting. Sitting around, letting her play me like a fool. It wasn't me. I'm not that guy. If Emily was cheating, I wasn't going to let it drag on while she pretended everything was fine. I needed a plan, something concrete to catch her red-handed. The phone was still my best bet, but I'd already struck out there. She'd changed the password, locked me out like I was the enemy. That left me with one option. I had to see it happen again. I had to catch her in the act. No room for excuses. She didn't make me wait long. 2 days later, she pulled the same routine. "I've got to step out for a bit," she said, slipping on her jacket. She was in the living room, fussing with her hair in the mirror by the door. "Work stuff?" she added, like that explained anything. "Work stuff? At 7 in the evening?" I wasn't buying it, but I played along. No problem, I said, leaning back on the couch, flipping through channels like I didn't give a damn. She grabbed her keys and left, the door clicking shut behind her. I gave it 5 minutes, then I was out the door too. This time, I was smarter about it. I parked a block away from that house, the one with the black SUV, and walked the rest of the way. My truck's too loud, too obvious, and I wasn't taking chances. When I got there, her car was already in the driveway. My pulse kicked up a notch, but I stayed calm, ducking behind a row of bushes across the street. I had my phone ready, camera zoomed in. The front door opened, and there he was again, Mr. Hoodie, looking way too comfortable. Emily stepped out, laughing at something he said, her hand brushing his arm. My stomach churned. I snapped a few shots, clear as day. Her smiling, him leaning in close, the two of them looking like a couple. They didn't go back inside. Instead, they walked to his SUV, climbed in, and drove off. I cursed under my breath. No way I could follow on foot. But I wasn't done. I jogged back to my truck, my mind racing. Where were they going? A date? A hotel? I didn't know, but I wasn't about to sit home twiddling my thumbs. I drove around for an hour, checking spots I thought they might hit. Restaurants, bars, anywhere. Nothing. I came up empty, but those pictures were gold. She couldn't deny them. Not this time. When she got home later, I was waiting in the kitchen, sipping a beer, acting like it was just another night. Hey, she said, tossing her keys on the counter. Work run late? I asked, keeping my voice steady. She nodded, barely glancing at me. Yeah, just some last-minute stuff. She grabbed a glass of water and headed upstairs, leaving me there with my thoughts. Last-minute stuff. Right. I could have called her out right then, shoved the photos in her face, but I held back. I wanted her to think she was still in control. People get sloppy when they're cocky, and I was counting on that. That night, I made a call. My buddy Mike, the one who'd tipped me off, picked up on the second ring. You were right, I said, keeping it short. I saw her with him. Got proof now. He didn't say much, just, damn, man, I'm sorry. What's your next move? I took a deep breath. I'm ending it, I told him. But I'm doing it my way. I wasn't just going to walk away. I was going to make sure she felt this. The next few days felt like walking through a fog. I was living with Emily, sleeping next to her, eating breakfast across the table from her, but it was like we were strangers sharing a house. She didn't notice how quiet I'd gotten, or if she did, she didn't care. She went about her routine, same as always. Work, phone, vague excuses about where she'd been. I kept my mouth shut, playing the part of the clueless husband. Inside, though, I was boiling. Those pictures of her with that guy were like a splinter under my skin, digging deeper every time she smiled at me like nothing was wrong. I wasn't just mad anymore. I was determined. She thought she could sneak around, lie to my face, and keep me in the dark forever. But I wasn't some chump she could string along. I had proof now, and I was building a plan. Confronting her wasn't enough. I wanted her to squirm, to feel the weight of what she'd done. So I started digging. If she was sloppy enough to let me catch her twice, there had to be more evidence out there. People don't cover their tracks as well as they think, especially when they're distracted by someone new. First, I checked our bank statements. We'd always shared an account. Nothing fancy, just the usual bills and groceries. I sat down with my laptop one morning while she was at work and scrolled through the last few months. It didn't take long to spot it. Withdrawals I didn't recognize. $50 here, $100 there, all cash, no receipts. Then there were charges, coffee shops I never went to, a dinner at some Italian place downtown I'd never heard of. My hands clenched the edge of the table as I pieced it together. She was spending our money on him. That hit me harder than the pictures. It wasn't just betrayal, it was theft. I printed everything out, every transaction that didn't add up, and tucked the pages into a folder. That was step one. Step two was trickier. I needed to know who this guy was. I didn't have a name, just a face and an address from those photos. So I called Mike again. You're good with tech, right? I asked him. He laughed, a little uneasy. Yeah, why? What are you up to, Jake? I told him about the house, the SUV, the whole mess. Can you figure out who lives there? I said, I need a name. He paused, then sighed. I'll see what I can do. But you sure about this? I was sure. More sure than I'd been about anything in months. While Mike worked his magic, I kept watching Emily. She didn't suspect a thing, too wrapped up in her secret life to notice me pulling mine apart. Thursday night, she came home late again, hair messy, a faint smell of cologne clinging to her jacket. Rough day? I asked, leaning against the counter with a glass of water in my hand. She shrugged, avoiding my eyes. Yeah, just busy. Busy? Sure. I let it slide, but my mind was screaming. How long had this been going on? How many nights had she come home like that, lying straight to my face? Friday morning, Mike texted me. Got something, he wrote. Guy's name is Ryan Carter. Owns the house. Works in sales, mid-30s, single. My jaw tightened as I read it. Ryan Carter. The name made it real, too real. I Googled him, found a LinkedIn profile. Same dark hair, same smug grin I'd seen in person. My hands shook as I stared at his picture. This was the guy tearing my marriage apart, and Emily was letting him. I thanked Mike and told him I'd handle it from here. He didn't ask questions, just said, "Be careful, man." That night, I made a choice. I wasn't going to let Emily control this anymore. She could have her fun with Ryan, but I was done being her doormat. I called a lawyer, a guy my cousin recommended, and set up a meeting for Monday. Divorce wasn't just an option now, it was the plan. But I wasn't ready to tip my hand. Not yet. I had one more move to make, something she'd never see coming. The weekend rolled in, and I was a man on edge. Emily was acting like everything was normal, making coffee, scrolling her phone, tossing me the occasional, "Hey, you okay?" like she actually cared. I nodded, kept my answers short. Inside, I was a mess of nerves and adrenaline, waiting for the right moment to flip the script. My lawyer meeting was set for Monday. The divorce papers were in motion, and I had my folder of evidence, bank statements, photos, Ryan Carter's name. I was ready to end this. But something kept gnawing at me. I needed one last piece, something to seal the deal. Saturday night, she pulled her usual stunt. "I'm heading out," she said, slipping on her shoes by the door. "Meeting a friend." She didn't even try to sell it, just threw it out there like I'd swallow it whole. I didn't ask questions this time. "Have fun," I said, forcing a smile. She left, and I waited 10 minutes before grabbing my keys. I wasn't following her to Ryan's this time. I had a different play in mind. I drove to our bank, hit the ATM, and pulled up our account on my phone. Another withdrawal, $50, time-stamped an hour ago. She was still using our money. That was all I needed to light the fuse. I got home, sat on the couch, and stared at my phone. The pictures, the statements, Ryan's smug face, it was all there. But then my phone buzzed, and everything changed. It was a text from Sarah, Emily's best friend since high school. We'd been talking lately, nothing crazy, just venting about Emily's cold streak. She'd always been straight with me, no nonsense. Her message was short. "Jake, call me. Now." My gut twisted. Sarah wasn't the dramatic type. I dialed her up, and she didn't waste a second. "You're not gonna believe this," she said, her voice low, urgent. "Emily's not just cheating. She's planning something big." I froze, gripping the phone tighter. "What do you mean?" I asked, my throat dry. Sarah took a breath, like she was bracing herself. "I overheard her today at the coffee shop. She didn't see me. She was on the phone with that guy, Ryan. They're not just hooking up, Jake. They're talking about draining your account and skipping town. She's got a whole plan. Clean you out, file for divorce, and leave you with nothing." My head spun. I couldn't speak for a second, just sat there, letting her words sink in. "She said she's doing it Monday," Sarah added. "I think she's meeting him tonight to finalize it." The room tilted. This wasn't just an affair. This was a damn heist. Emily wasn't content to break my heart. She wanted to ruin me, take everything I'd worked for, and ride off with Ryan like some twisted Bonnie and Clyde. I thanked Sarah, my voice shaky, and hung up. My hands were trembling, but my mind snapped into focus. I'd been playing defense, gathering evidence to protect myself. Now I knew she was coming for blood. I wasn't about to let her win. I grabbed my laptop and logged into our bank account. Sure enough, the balance was lower than it should have been, small chunks missing over weeks, adding up fast. I called the bank's emergency line, told them I suspected fraud, and froze the account. The lady on the phone was calm, walked me through it step by step. "It's locked now, sir," she said. "No one can touch it until you come in person." I exhaled, relief mixing with rage. Emily didn't know it yet, but her big plan just hit a wall. Then I called my lawyer, left a voicemail. "It's Jake. Things escalated. She's trying to drain me dry. Can we rush those papers?" I hung up and leaned back, staring at the ceiling. Emily thought she had me cornered, but I'd just turned the tables. She'd come home tonight, all smug and clueless, and I'd be waiting. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. She'd picked the wrong guy to double-cross. I sat in the dark living room, the clock ticking past midnight, waiting for Emily to walk through the door. My phone was on the coffee table, screen off, but those pictures and Sarah's warning were burned into my brain. The bank account was frozen, my lawyer was on it, and I had a stack of evidence that could bury her. Still, my nerves were shot. This wasn't just about catching her anymore. It was about outsmarting her. She thought she was steps ahead, plotting to clean me out with Ryan. She had no idea I'd already pulled the rug out from under her. The headlights of her car flashed through the window around 1 a.m. I heard the engine cut off, then the jingle of her keys. The door creaked open, and there she was, hair a little messy, jacket slung over her arm, that fake casual vibe she'd been perfecting for weeks. "Hey," she said, kicking off her shoes. "You're still up?" Her voice was light, like she didn't have a care in the world. I nodded, leaning back in the armchair. "Couldn't sleep," I said, keeping my tone even. She didn't look at me long, just tossed her purse on the counter and headed for the kitchen. "Long night." I called after her. She grabbed a water bottle from the fridge, shrugged. "Yeah, just catching up with a friend. You know how it goes." I almost laughed. "Catching up? Right." I watched her sip her water, all calm and collected, like she wasn't planning to gut me come Monday. My hands itched to lay it all out. Photos, bank records, Sarah's bombshell, but I held back. Timing was everything. I wanted her to feel safe, to think she was still in control. "Good to have friends," I said, letting the words hang there. She glanced at me, a flicker of something in her eyes, suspicion maybe, but she brushed it off and headed upstairs. "Night, Jake," she muttered. I didn't follow her. I stayed downstairs, pacing the living room, plotting my next move. Sunday was my last day to lock this down before she tried anything. I called Sarah first thing in the morning, keeping my voice low so Emily wouldn't hear. "You sure about what she said?" I asked. Sarah didn't hesitate. "Dead sure. She was bragging about it, Jake, like it's a game. Said she'd have the money moved by Tuesday latest." I thanked her, hung up, and got to work. My lawyer called back around noon. Papers were ready, and he'd added an emergency clause about the account fraud. "Bring your evidence tomorrow," he said. "We'll file first thing." That afternoon, Emily was in a weirdly good mood. She hummed while making lunch, even offered me a sandwich. "You've been quiet lately," she said, sliding the plate across the counter. "Everything okay?" I looked at her, searching her face for a crack, guilt, nerves, anything. Nothing. She was too good at this. "Just thinking," I said, taking a bite. She smiled, a little too bright, and changed the subject. It was surreal, her acting like a doting wife while sharpening the knife for my back. I played along, kept it light, but my mind was racing. She didn't know Monday was coming for her, not me. That night, I couldn't sit still. I went over everything. The photos, the statements, Sarah's tip. I even dug through Emily's coat pockets while she showered. Found a receipt for a bar I'd never been to, time-stamped last night. More proof. I tucked it into my folder, my hands steady now. The fear was gone, replaced by something colder, sharper. She tried to play me, but I was done being the sucker. Tomorrow, I'd hit her with the divorce papers and watch her world crumble. But I had one more card up my sleeve, something she'd never expect, something that'd sting worse than losing the money. I smiled to myself, thinking about it. Emily wasn't just losing me. She was about to lose everything she thought she'd won. Monday morning hit like a freight train. I was up before the sun, adrenaline pumping through me. Emily was still asleep, oblivious, her phone glowing on the nightstand. I slipped out of bed, grabbed my folder of evidence, photos, bank statements, that bar receipt, everything, and headed downstairs. My lawyer was expecting me at 9 sharp, and I wasn't wasting a second. I made coffee, more out of habit than need, and sat at the kitchen table, staring at the papers. This was it, the end of the line for us. But I wasn't nervous anymore. I was ready. Emily came down around 8, yawning, her hair a mess. "Morning," she said, pouring herself a cup. She didn't notice the folder at first, just leaned against the counter, sipping like it was any other day. I watched her, waiting. "Big plans today?" I asked, casual as hell. She shrugged. "Maybe. You." Her voice was light, but I caught the edge, something smug, like she knew something I didn't. Oh, she had no idea. I smiled, tapped the folder with my finger. "Yeah, actually. Got a meeting." She glanced at it, then at me, but didn't ask. Fine by me. She'd find out soon enough. I left the house at 8:30, drove straight to the lawyer's office. He was a no-nonsense guy, gray hair, sharp suit. "You've got a hell of a case, Jake," he said, flipping through my stack. The account freeze was smart. She won't get a dime without a fight. We filed the papers, divorce, fraud claims, the works. By 10, it was official. Emily was getting served that afternoon. I felt lighter walking out of there, like I'd finally shaken off a weight I'd been carrying too long. But the real kicker was still coming. I got home around noon. Emily was in the living room, scrolling her phone, oblivious. I didn't say much, just waited. At 2, the doorbell rang. She frowned, got up. "Who's that?" she muttered, heading to the door. I stayed on the couch, heart pounding but steady. She opened it, and there was the process server, a bored-looking guy in a polo shirt. "Emily Harper?" he asked. She nodded, confused. He handed her the envelope. "You've been served." Her face went white as he walked away. She tore it open, scanned the papers, and then her eyes snapped to me. "What the hell is this, Jake?" she yelled, storming over. I stood up, calm as could be. "Divorce papers," I said, "and a little something about you trying to drain our account." Her jaw dropped, but she recovered fast, tossing the papers on the table. "You're insane," she spat. "I don't know what you're talking about." I pulled out my phone, opened the photos, her with Ryan, laughing outside his house. "This ring a bell?" I asked, holding it up. She froze, eyes wide, then tried to flip it. "You're spying on me? That's sick." I laughed, couldn't help it. "Sick stealing from me with your boyfriend, Emily." She went off, yelling about trust, calling me paranoid, but I cut her off. "Save it," I said, grabbing my keys. "Oh, and one more thing." I walked to the door, opened it, and there stood Sarah, her best friend, my ace in the hole. "Hey, babe," Sarah said, stepping inside, smiling at me. Emily's face crumpled. Shock, betrayal, the works. "What?" she stammered. I shrugged. "Turns out Sarah's a better friend to me than you ever were. Enjoy your day." I left with Sarah, didn't look back. The courts sorted it later. Assets split, but my proof kept most of mine safe. Emily got nothing extra, no big win with Ryan. Last I heard, they split too. Me? I'm with Sarah now, taking it slow. Trust's hard after that mess, but I'm healing. Emily thought she'd ruin me, but I came out stronger. That's my story. Wild, yeah, but it's mine. And if you're reading this, don't ignore the signs. I didn't, and it saved me.